Hello, everyone, and welcome to Harbourtime Strategy Talks. I'm your host, Colin Harbour, and I want to ask you a couple of questions today. What are you doing to build your personal brand? Do you even care? We'll cover some of that in a little bit, and I'll tell you, our guest today has a great blog about personal branding and corporate strategy and branding. One of the entries that I found is, I don't want to be a superstar. This is the title of the blog. I don't want to be a superstar. I just want to do my job. Is personal branding for me? In her own words, she says, and yet the world is changing whether we like it or not. So I hope you can tie those two together. Personal branding, do you care? Yet the world is changing. So we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. As a reminder, I kicked off my Vulnerability Tour 2021 a couple of weeks ago. We're going to be discussing a variety of topics. We've already discussed failure, criticism, communication, anxiety, envy, immobilization, indecisiveness, self-pity. And we're going to talk about these things. It's based off a book that my father published in 2005. But all of these roadblocks, these issues that we'll face will all come up in 2021. So we're going to discuss specific strategies for overcoming those in 2021. And I want to thank everybody for listening to the podcast and watching on YouTube or wherever else you may be watching. Don't forget to leave comments, subscribe, share the information. I appreciate the feedback that is provided. It helps me as I develop the show and develop the content moving forward. Today, with our guests, we're going to cover a couple of topics. One is personal branding and how it's tied to social selling. So I looked up the definitions of a couple of these just to make sure we're all on the same page. Social selling, according to Wikipedia, is the process of developing relationships as part of the sales process. Today, this often takes place via social networks. We've all seen it, right? LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest. But can take place either online or offline. It also involves listening. So social selling involves listening. It's about gaining popularity, building your brand, gaining brand popularity. Personal branding is the conscious and intentional effort to create and influence public perception of an individual by positioning them as an authority in their industry, elevating their creativity, thought leadership, differentiating yourself. That's what personal branding's about. Hey, like we said, I just want to go work in my job. Does personal branding really matter? I think the answer is yes, and we're going to cover some of that. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next guest, and I've apologized to her in advance because I know that I am going to butcher her name. She's from Estonia, and her name is Olesija Saue. I knew I was going to mess up. I practiced it, and I knew I was going to mess up. So we recently met via phone conference, and I enjoyed hearing about what she does for companies and individuals. On that day in Dallas, Texas, we had a record-crushing temperatures in the low single digits. But in Estonia, it was -20. And yet she smiled when she told me that, just like she is today, because she said, hey, it's sunny outside. You just got to have a good jacket. So how's that for perspective? If it's -20 degrees and you can have a positive attitude, that's the right perspective. So she's a personal branding specialist, social media expert, and a business coach. She has an MBA from the Estonian Business School and has a website and a blog that I've mentioned. We'll put that up on the screen for you. It focuses on personal brand and corporate strategy. Oh, and she co-authored a book, The Brand Named You, is the name of the book, with Evelyn Orge. And I'm sure I pronounced that incorrectly too. So, hey, well, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hi, Colin, and nice to virtually meet with all of our listeners. Yes, I come from Estonia, and I actually have a background in B2B business. I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and during my career, I have experienced both very quick and then high rises, and then also very big falls. And nowadays, I actually think that all of my experiences give me a unique perspective and a unique advantage when I'm working with companies, when I'm working with executives and individuals, because I have seen business from very many different angles. And what you were talking about mindset, when we're talking about business, this is number one thing that we have to fix straight from the beginning, because it is easy to be in business when everything is thriving, but we really learn our lessons and we evolve when life gets tough, as it is right now. So I know that in 2020, and it continues to nowadays, a lot of people are struggling. I have been in the same situation during last crisis, and I came to realization that whatever the situation is, each and every one of us actually has this set of, I call it personal brand DNA, things that nobody can take from us, things that we can always really put to our advantage, both in business and in marketing. And those are our unique strengths, our values, our why, and most importantly, our story. A story that we have to own and we have to share.
But one of the things I also wanted to say is, can you pronounce your name so that we've got it on record how to officially pronounce it, since I've butchered it so bad?
It's Olesija. So you're pretty close.
Okay, I was kind of close. I practiced and I still messed up, but that's okay. Personal branding. You talked a little bit about that. I've read it on your website. It is such a big topic right now. I've been going through it personally over the last year. Created my own podcast, created my own YouTube channel, my own enhanced what I think enhanced my image on LinkedIn, and trying to put out some information. So, and I know many others have and are thinking about doing it. So why is personal branding your passion?
Well, I'm an executive coach, and I'm also a social media person. So I have two passions, people and social media. And the way that I see personal branding is actually a mixture of those two. When people are talking about personal branding, they mainly think, this packaging part, a website, a logo, colors, but the most important part of personal branding is actually your substance, what is inside, the same story, your strengths, your values, your why, because they really talk to our subconscious mind. And uh, we all think that we make decisions very logically, but in fact, 96% of our decisions are made emotionally. And then we either go with this first emotional hint, or we are looking for some rational things to justify our decision. So all of those things, if we're talking about, I'm talking about my values and you can relate to them, or I'm talking about my why, what is my mission, what do I want to do, you also can relate to me on much deeper personal level. And then I have to live up to your expectations. So what we're really doing in personal branding is putting together our uniqueness and packaging in its in the way that our ideal customers could resonate to us. Because if you think about the word branding, what does it mean? So basically, we originally took a company and created a brand archetype around it. And the brand archetype is also some kind of person with some kind of qualities that evoke certain emotions in people. If I tell you Volvo or Audi or Porsche, all of those brands actually create certain emotions. But we as people already have this in us, so we really have to just package it effectively. Now, we all actually have a personal brand pretty much from the moment that we start doing something in the university, in the working space. In 2012, Jeff Bezos said the famous quote that personal branding is what other people are saying about you when you have left the room. So this is a perception that you
Sure.
create. Now, in 2021, I would say that personal branding is now what other people know about you before you actually enter the room. This we now have two worlds. We have physical world and we have a digital world. And we really need to make sure that our physical personal brand and our digital personal brand at least are on the same level. So our digital brand is not working against our real personal brand, or in ideal scenario, it actually would amplify that.
That is a great description about your passion. I love that, and I love the changing tides, or the new thought is, hey, the brand is what people think about you already when you're there. They've read what you've put out. They've looked you up online if they're meeting with you. So what are you communicating? And I like your other point, and that's goes back to my opening questions of, hey, do I even need a personal brand anyway? Well, you have a personal brand. You have one from the day you go to do something, and whether it's going to going to university or your first job, your first day on the job, you've created your personal brand immediately. You created it in the interview process, in your resume. So all of those things go into your personal brand. So you might as well spend time developing it and making sure it's communicating your values and what you want others